Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take your sources, really get into them, and pull out the most fascinating insights.
And today, we're looking at a stack of ancient texts, specifically bits related to a really powerful story from the Dhammapada commentary.
That's right, the story of the Vajjīputtaka Bhikkhu.
Yeah, and our mission today, you could say, is to unpack this particular narrative. It's all about, well, dissatisfaction, renunciation.
And a key teaching from the Buddha about suffering.
Exactly. We're going to use the sources you've given us to pull out the details, the things that make this story still hit home today.
Absolutely. So, get ready. We're stepping back into ancient Vesali.
To explore this moment of, well, crisis and transformation.
Okay, so let's open up these sources. Where are we? Ancient Vesali.
Right. And it's not just any night. There's this huge all-night festival going on at Chaivara. The city's alive.
Alive is right. The texts describe it as, completely decorated.
Everywhere. Flags, streamers. It must have been quite something.
And the scale. Wow. It mentions 7,707 kings.
An equal number of officials, too? Viceroys? Commanders?
All out in the streets doing something called constellation sports.
We don't know exactly what that was, but picture thousands of VIPs just celebrating publicly.
And the sound, the sources really emphasize that.
Oh, yeah. Loud music everywhere. Drums, lutes. Just imagine the noise.
So a city completely immersed in this massive, noisy celebration.
And then right in the middle of all this, well, not in the middle, but nearby,
we have our main character, the Vajjīputtaka Bhikkhu.
And the sources make it clear he wasn't just, anybody.
No, he was a prince, apparently, from the Vajji region.
That's right. Gave up his shot at the throne to become a monk.
So he chose this life.
He did. And while the city is partying under the full moon...
Where is he?
He's alone. In a forest nearby, the Mahavana, Vavanatha, the text calls it.
Living this completely separate existence.
The contrast is just stark.
Yeah.
The loud, bright city.
And him, alone in the woods.
Exactly. The sources even describe him walking back and forth on his meditation path. 60 cubits long, it says.
Looking up at the full moon.
But tonight, that solitude isn't peaceful for him. Not at all.
What sets him off?
It's the sound, isn't it? Hearing that festival music drifting over from Vesali.
Ah, right. That reminder of what he's not part of.
Precisely. And the texts describe him stopping his walking meditation.
He just stands there.
Leaning on a plank at the end of his path, it says.
Yeah.
And he just looks at himself.
And what does he see? Or what does he think he sees?
Well, because he doesn't have the fine clothes, the decorations, all the stuff people at the festival have.
He feels lacking.
Worse than lacking. He sees himself, and this phrase is powerful, like a piece of wood thrown away in the forest.
Ooh. Just discarded, useless.
And then he actually says it, or thinks it. The text quotes his lament. Alone we reside in the forest, like a piece of wood abandoned.
In a night like this, who is now worse off than us?
Yeah. He's genuinely thinking, is there anyone more miserable than me right now?
It's quite a low point.
It really is. And the text adds this important bit. Normally, he was fine with forest life, suited for it even.
But this moment, hearing that music...
It just tipped him over into this profound dissatisfaction. Circumstances got to him.
Okay, so he's at rock bottom. What happens next? The story shifts, right?
It does, in a kind of amazing way. A deity appears.
Like a god or spirit living in that forest.
That's the idea, residing right there. And this deity has an intention.
Which is?
The sources say the deity wanted to stir emotion in the monk, to shake things up for him.
How?
By speaking a verse. And it uses the monk's own image.
The piece of wood.
Exactly. But with this incredible twist, the deity says, alone you reside in the forest like a piece of wood abandoned in the forest.
Okay, mirroring his own thought.
But then comes the punchline. Many crave for you, like beings in hell crave for those going to heaven.
Wow. So instead of being worthless, he's actually desirable, envied.
Yeah. Envied from a place of ultimate suffering. Yeah. It completely reframes his situation. What he saw as misery, others see as a state of grace.
So the monk hears this. That must have hit him hard.
You'd think so. It turns his whole self-pity on its head.
What does he do?
His reaction is immediate, according to the sources. The very next day.
He goes to see the Buddha.
Straight away. Pays his respects, sits down. He clearly needs to process this, get some wisdom.
And the Buddha presumably understands what's happened.
The texts say he knew. He understood the monk's whole experience, the despair, the deity's words.
So what was the Buddha's approach?
Well, seeing the monk wrestling with this, especially the contrast with lay life. The Buddha wanted to show him something deeper.
Not just about the monk's specific struggle.
Know about the suffering that's inherent even in that lay life. The monk was maybe, for a moment, regretting leaving the Garavasa.
So he gave a teaching.
Yes, he combined 5 specific kinds of suffering into one verse, a gutha.
Okay, what was the verse?
It's quite direct. Difficult is renouncing. Difficult is delighting in the renunciate life. Difficult are houses, painful are houses. Painful is living with those who are equal. One on a long journey is followed by suffering. Therefore, one should not be on a long journey, nor should one be followed by suffering.
That covers a lot of ground.
It really does. Let's maybe unpack those 5 points based on how the sources explain them.
Yeah, good idea. First one, difficult is renouncing.
So the pain here, the source says, is about the act of giving things up. Your wealth, whether it's a little or a lot, your family, your whole social world.
That initial leap.
Right. And then even after you've made the leap, you have to constantly put in effort. It's hard work.
Okay. Second, difficult is delighting.
Difficult is delighting. This is after renouncing.
Exactly. Finding joy or satisfaction in the monastic life itself is also hard. You're living off alms. You have to constantly guard your virtue.
That immeasurable mass of virtue phrase is striking. It is. And fulfilling the whole practice, according to the Dhamma, it's demanding. Finding delight there is a challenge. It's painful in its own way.
Makes sense. Third, difficult are houses, painful are houses. Duravasagar dukkha. This shifts focus to lay life.
Right, and the source explains this pain through obligations. Duties to rulers, supporting dependents, caring for monks and Brahmins.
All the responsibilities.
And even if you do all that, the text says lay life is like trying to fill a pot with holes.
Or the ocean.
Yeah. It's basically saying it's impossible to feel truly full or satisfied. There's always more demand, more required. That inherent lack of fulfillment makes householder life difficult, painful.
That leaky pot analogy really lands. Okay, fourth. Painful is living with those who are equal. Dukkha samasavaso. What's this about?
This is about friction between people, whether they're lay people or monks. They might be equal on the surface, same background, wealth, maybe even virtue or knowledge.
Peers, you might say.
But then they get into disputes. The text gives examples like saying, who are you? Who am I? Basically, ego clashes and arguments.
Ah, so it's the conflict, not the equality itself, that's the problem.
Exactly. The source calls people who act like that unequal ones because they create disharmony. Living with that kind of friction is painful.
Interesting definition of unequal. Okay, and the fifth point.
Finally, one on a long journey is followed by suffering. Dukkhanupatitatagu. This is broader.
The journey of life, or existence.
The journey of the cycle of existence, Vajji, is how the source puts it. If you're on that journey, suffering is basically your travel companion. It follows you.
And the text clarifies.
Yeah, it really hammers it home. And being on the journey is suffering, and being followed by suffering is also suffering. It's inescapable within that cycle.
So the Buddha took the monk's specific feeling of missing out on lay life
and showed him that suffering isn't just over here in the renunciate life. It's woven into the very fabric of existence, including the lay life he was momentarily idealizing.
It reframed the whole picture of suffering for him.
Absolutely. And the impact was profound, according to the sources.
What happened to the monk?
Well, after hearing this teaching, that feeling of dissatisfaction transformed. He became truly disenchanted with suffering, seeing it clearly in all these aspects the Buddha laid out.
He got it.
He really got it. And this realization led to a major breakthrough. The sources say he broke the fetters.
The 5 lower and the 5 higher fetters. These are the things that bind you to rebirth, right?
Exactly. Mental chains, attachments. He shattered them.
And the result?
The ultimate result. He became established in arahantship. Complete liberation from suffering.
Wow. So his moment of deep despair, his piece of wood moment,
led directly, through the deity's intervention and the Buddha's teaching, to enlightenment.
It's an amazing story, and pulling it from these sources like this, it really feels, well, relevant even now, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, think about that monk's feeling. Standing alone, hearing the party, feeling like a piece of wood. How often do we maybe feel something similar? That sense of isolation, maybe looking at social media or just seeing other people seemingly having a great time.
And questioning our own path. Am I missing out? Did I make the wrong choice?
Exactly. That comparison trap. And then there's the deity's message.
Many crave for you.
Right. It flips the script entirely. Does it maybe challenge us to think, even when we're feeling down about our own situation, could someone else, looking from their own struggles, actually envy aspects of our life.
It puts perspective on things for sure. Our suffering might look like heaven to someone else.
In the Buddha's teaching itself, not just life is hard, but those specific points.
Yeah, the difficulty of renunciation, sure, but also finding delight within that path.
And the pain point in lay life. The endless duties, that feeling of the leaky pot you can never fill.
And that friction, even with equals, that really resonates. Conflict can arise anywhere.
It's a very nuanced picture of suffering, covering multiple angles.
So the teaching ends with this idea of the long journey, Vadaya, the cycle of existence.
And the sources are quite explicit. Being on the journey is suffering, and being followed by suffering is suffering.
It seems pretty comprehensive. Suffering is inherent to the process itself.
So if we take that just based on these sources, if the very movement, the proceeding through the cycle, is suffering, and the results or companions of that movement are also suffering.
What does that really imply about change itself? About any kind of becoming within this existence?
Yeah. It makes you wonder about the fundamental nature of just moving through time and experience in this cycle. Definitely something to chew on.